Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Terrific Tips for Business. I am Terry, your host, and today we have Pete Romano with us, the founder and developer of Siegewig CRM systems. So let me tell you a little bit about Pete and how we met, because it's a lot of fun. Pete has CRM, marketing automation, and is a marketing specialist, and he's been doing it for over 20 years in the advertising and marketing space, much like myself. And we actually met very serendipitously in an event in New Jersey earlier in 2020, before the COVID thing happened.
Oh my
And
God.
we had a great relationship, great conversation right off the bat. And he actually helps me with all of my CRM stuff for SpinFrogs. So I'm really excited to have him on the show today to share the value of CRMs and marketing automation and really kind of how he got into this industry, because I think that helps people to find their calling. So join me in welcoming Pete to the show. Thanks for being here.
Hey guys, it's really amazing to be with you, Terry. And just to piggyback off of what you said for meeting, it's like one of those things where I remember where I was when we met, because it was such an amazing time that event that you mentioned. There was so much excitement around that, and it was so cool to be connecting with people. I mean, you were coming all the way up from the south, and you were calling me, and we just met in this WhatsApp group, and
Yeah.
we just kicked it off, right? We just hit it off really well.
It was really funny because you had called me the Thursday that I got there, and you were like, well, you're going to be on the floor tomorrow, right? And I said, yeah. And you were like, well, find me. And I was like, okay. And I had no idea what I was looking for, where you were going to be. And it just so happened that I ended up sitting right in front of you.
Right. Yeah.
And I
And
had made a
I think we
sound
were
or something, and you recognized my voice, and you were like, Terry?
I think we were texting back and forth for an hour, but I didn't realize I was looking at the back of your head. And yeah, I think that's how it happened.
I think that's how the best relationships start, though, that organic growth, that organic conversation. Because we had what, like 5 or 6 conversations before we started doing any kind of CRM work together, right?
Right, right. And we have a very common background. You're an expert marketing advisor, and I'm trying to be one. But yeah, so we have a lot of the similar types of clients and a lot of the similar types of challenges. And so there's a lot that we can sit around patting each other on the back about, but also crying about.
Yeah. It's important to have somebody who understands the background so you can have that. And I think every small business owner needs that. A lot of times we feel like we're kind of on a desert island by ourselves. So it's nice to find other people in the industry in other areas so we can know we're not on desert islands all by ourselves. We have
Well,
other people.
I was very, very blessed, and when I first got my business started, it was in a co-working space, and I just happened to be sitting around with just a bunch of geniuses that just happened to be all in this co-working space at the same time, and many of those people I became, longtime friends with, and that's when my business was first getting started, and so were some of them. And it was so important over the last 9 years or so, where I've been running my own business, to have a business buddy. Everybody needs to have a business buddy that you can call, that answers the phone, that isn't just like running the clock, and they're willing to hear what you're crying about, or willing to sort of give feedback on this, or no, you can't possibly say that to that guy. No, why don't you reframe it like this? And so I've been very fortunate to have good business buddies to uh, pal around with, and just build our own experience level together.
I think that's a great tip for small business owners. Find a buddy. Remember when we were kids and you were in the hallway at school and they were like, buddy system, have a buddy with you. I don't know if they
Right.
still do that anymore, but I remember when I was in school, we had the buddy system. And so
Well, like
we
a
still need
social distance buddy.
it. That's right. Social distance buddy now.
Be
Exactly.
close, get close, but not too close.
That's right. That's the
Right.
beautiful thing with technology is we can have our social distance buddies speak.
Sign of the times.
Exactly, exactly. But having a buddy does help kind of keep your sanity for
Right.
sure. So how did you've been doing marketing and advertising for a long time. How did you get into the marketing and advertising world?
So I was always a creative person. In fact, I'm so creative and spacey that I forgot to plug in my computer. So I'm just gonna like go over here for a second and just
Yeah.
take like a quick break. And so hold on one second. So I don't mind, like we could just maybe leave this part in. It's like human and
Life happening. Okay. So we did have this calendar thing happen and life happened and the morning kind of got away and this is life. It's all good.
so we're back. We're framed.
We're
I'm in
back.
shot.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm in frame, and so I was just thinking about the other day when I was a kid. I just remember talking to friends and having such a big imagination. I would just I would say things out loud like imagine if this or imagine if that, and I don't remember if the other kids would be so responsive to this, but I was just thinking to myself like as an elementary school kid I remember saying that a lot, and so I think I had this knack for creativity where even I was writing tunes in the third grade. I was just a snare drummer in the elementary school band, but I was like writing original music. And then I was blessed in middle school and high school to have a wonderful music teacher, a couple of really good music teachers. You know, they were teaching me guitar and drums and keyboards. I started programming on the sequencer, like orchestral scores, and so that led into getting a music degree, a Bachelor of Fine Arts. But I didn't want to be really on the artist side. I preferred film scores, and that's an area that of production world called post production. If you're in the audio post production world or the video post production world, that means that you're working on after the film is shot, or you're editing the film and you're putting the music to the film. And so I got into surround sound mixing, and so I was always in service of some other product. I was always a producer in service of some other person with the real creative vision, and I would make sure that their vision would come to life. And so my early and mid 20s, I was working with all these big advertising agencies in the city on ExxonMobil and Allstate and State Farm, all of these huge advertising accounts. And that, gave me this bug to just want to continue with that. And so when I was probably 29 or 30, right in the middle of the economic crash, I think, I just decided that I've had enough of working in the city for doing this. There was a real glass ceiling to progress in that world. And so I decided that I could probably be more suited for the entrepreneurial life. And I started a marketing agency in Hoboken, New Jersey. And that led to this, now this CRM company that I have. And did I go too far back there, going all the way back to elementary school? No.
No, I love it because it really lends to what you do inside of Siegewick. So you're the mastermind behind what you want this platform to do, and you also are doing the programming to make that possible, to make those tools exist. And so I think that's really cool to be able to understand that your programming actually came out of music, which is really interesting, actually.
Yeah, well, it's all very logical stuff. It's all very mathematical stuff. It's all about components fitting together. And so if one tried to trace the common thread between playing the guitar and um, writing a score, that seems pretty obvious. But then becoming a marketing person, okay, that's a little bit more of a distance, but it's still creative. And then, okay, now into software, there's a common thread of having to write logical things and have components working together. If you have a band, the bass line has to be doing something with the drummer, and the guitar player has to be doing something that makes sense together, and not just makes sense from a technical point of view, but makes sense from a creative point of view. And so um, yeah, I could paint a common thread all the way back. So yeah.
That's so cool. And I think a lot of marketers really can, because it's not like you went out into life saying, I'm going to be a marketer. Like, we never really set out to do that. It just happens. Like,
Right.
you're in it and you look back at one point and you say, well, what's the common thread? I love being creative. I love creating things. So I like to build things. Okay, so if I look back over my history of everything that I've ever done, how many things have I built and created? I'm an artist too. I am a painter instead of a musician. So I have art in a different way, right? Fine art. And I've always done some kind of creative work with my hands. So building things into this marketing thing, well, okay, there's that common thread of liking to create and build. And I think that's what a lot of marketers have, is that common thread somewhere in their past.
Well, yeah, like so you love seeing your projects come to life, and so I'm handy in a lot of different ways. I'm handy on the creative side and making tunes and making marketing campaigns, and so somebody asked me, like, what would my talent be for the apocalypse if there was an apocalypse, and so. I, I suppose I said jokingly that I could make cheap furniture out of L brackets. Like that's kind of like my own apocalyptic talent. And maybe I could negotiate with like the henchmen that sort of are roaming the earth during the apocalypse. I could be a good negotiator. And so, but when it comes to the apocalypse, that's as handy as I think that I'll be.
That's
And
phenomenal. I love it. Let's talk a little bit about the CRM system. Like, what is the value of a CRM system for a small business owner? Because that's largely who's probably listening to this conversation, is small business owners. And a lot of them have heard the term CRM system, but they don't really know what that means or what it could really entail.
sure. So people confuse CRM all the time. What people first ought to understand about what it means is that it's just a philosophy. Like, yes, small business owners are inundated with ads for CRM software, but CRM software is just stuff that is meant to help your customer relationship management. So you have a business, you have a way of dealing with your customers, you have a journey that the customers go through. There is an experience that the customers have when they're engaging with your business, and that experience can be assisted with CRM software. And all of this software has emerged over the last 20, 25 years to attempt to assist business owners along that journey.
Yeah. Make it like a seamless, good marketing is invisible. And so having a CRM system allows you to look like you have all of your stuff so under control, when really there's this system in the background that's like reminding you of, it's so and so's birthday, it's their anniversary. You
Yeah,
know?
I think in the last 9 years of being on my own as a small business owner, I say very, very, very lovingly, because it applies to myself just the same, is that every small business is like a mess with a roof on it. And so we all need little ways to clean up our mess and operate in a better way. None of us are good operators. If you're a fan of the E-Myth, the Michael Gerber book, you recognize that all business owners can be divided into three types of personalities: the manager, the entrepreneur, and the technician. And a successful business can't survive without all three of those personalities. And so when I reflect upon my early experiences as a business owner, I realized that I was probably 50% technician, or let me say 60% technician. I was really good at doing certain technical work. But let me give some definitions first. The technician is the guy who wants to sit around and just do all the work. He doesn't want to talk to clients. He doesn't want to go out on a sales meeting. He wants to sit there and fidget with tools and put stuff in and build stuff. The manager is the person who's probably fidgeted with tools before, but is probably not so great with it, but they're really good at putting things into boxes and figuring things out and planning things. And the entrepreneur is the guy that would go out there and doesn't want to be caught behind a desk. For the life of him, is probably bad at filing things into little drawers, but they're really good at going out and making sales regardless of their ability to even deliver on what they're selling. And so my early experience, if I could be honest, was probably 60% technician, 30% manager, 60% technician, 30% entrepreneur, and 10% manager, meaning I couldn't manage making dinner. But I had to balance all of those out. And so business owners need to know sort of where their strengths are, and that's where decent partnerships are. Like I've seen partnerships between business owners, two guys running a business where both people are the technician. They don't realize that they have that's what they are, but they end up butting heads because really both of them secretly desire to just be the people pushing the buttons, and nobody's going out and being the entrepreneur, and that business is not going to flourish. And so what customer relationship management sort of helps you with is that managerial role. I think it sort of helps people in that it gives people a framework to, so what does that mean? So it's a place, let's bring it back down to earth. It's a place to store your customers in lists. It's a place to catalog your customers. It's a place to store all of your invoices, to store the quotes, to store entire histories of communications with your clients, so that as you scale, you can have remote people. You can bring on employees, and the employees can see entire histories of how these customers have worked. And so Segwick is another platform with very unique qualities compared to the rest of them for doing that kind of work.
And I think the other component that a good CRM system does is it allows you to take other tools that you're probably already using and integrate them, so that instead of having 5 dashboards or 10 dashboards that you as the technician maybe have to have open at any given time, you now only need one dashboard. So now you're streamlining your time, your focus, your energy to help you become more efficient. So if you are that entrepreneur who is also having to be the manager and having to be the technician, now if you only have one dashboard to use instead of 20, you
Right.
can streamline that time and become much, much more efficient, providing the results for your clients, whatever industry you are in.
Yeah, 100%. And so I'm going to put a challenge out there to everybody watching this to just take a moment and think about all of the different software that you personally check in with on a daily basis. So take a minute, take a minute. All right, so now just to make better TV, we'll just move on. So people have their Gmail or their Outlook. They have their calendar, their Gmail or their Outlook calendar. But then they have their credit card processing software. They have their phone that they're fidgeting with. They have their project management software. But then they have their email marketing software. And they have, if they're doing text messaging software. And then
social media software.
Yeah, then they have the social media software and their project management software, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And how any person watching this who has even a single employee, how hard is it to just train people on a workflow? How are we supposed to deliver the work? And that question is even more important now with all of these distributed workforces that are taking place, is that businesses were run kind of as a little bit of a mess beforehand. Now you take all of the employees and you distribute them all over God's green earth. And how are we supposed to manage all of that stuff?
Not just manage it, but know who's doing what at what time, so that you're not double paying two different people to do the same job, and be able to know that they're actually doing the job that you need them to do, so that you're not having to go back and check behind them to make sure that it was done. You just know that it was done because it was recorded the way that it was supposed to be.
Yeah, and so then people ask me, well, Pete, okay, so great. So you have a CRM and you manage things, but it's really much more exciting than that because I challenge. Let me maybe tell this story. It's like people adopt CRM and they adopt software in this sort of hackneyed way over time where they start their business and they have a couple things and then some guy tells them, oh, well, you need this. And then that becomes part of the mix. Oh, but now you want to do this. Well, then you need this and then you need this. And so now you have 10 pieces of software and you're trying to build a scalable business. But meanwhile, little bits of your customer data are in all of these different places. And so how are you supposed to scale when really you're just hitting virtual walls? You're just, you can't scale up because your MailChimp isn't talking to your Gmail. It's not talking to your phone systems. Your website is dumping contacts into your inbox and you don't even know that you're missing contacts. And so people are out there griping that you don't get back to them because you're missing things. And so when I set out to make Segwit as an early entrepreneur, I was like, oh my God, what did I bite off trying to be a business owner? This is a mess. Like, this is so hard. And I was barely 2 years into running my business. And luckily I was working with programmers at the time doing websites. And I just had this idea that our time programming would be better spent trying to solve this problem that I couldn't even define myself. I just knew it intuitively. Trying to solve this problem of all of this different disparate software, I would just try to bring the necessary components into one place. And that's after 6 years of programming with my staff, of being so committed to this project. And I thank them every single day. This team that I've been able to put together, we now have this product that we call Segwit, which is just really, 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 really special in delivering a customer experience that the entrepreneur wants to deliver.
And I think it's really important what you touched on is this disconnect in the software. I'm even going through it right now with one of my clients, like actively. They're using the HubSpot CRM software because it's free. But what they've run into is the limitations of what the free version of that software do and the lack of communication between their other systems that they have. And then, of course, those other systems have limitations too. So like they have the HubSpot system and then they have the, MailChimp system. They don't communicate together, but you need certain information from the HubSpot system to appear in the MailChimp system so that he can properly segment his email list for
Right.
like birthday celebrations or for promoting different Zoom conferences that he's doing that are specific targeted events for specific services that he's offering. But they don't, or even like his referral program. He has nowhere to put where these people were referred by that can just pull a quick report to show him where they were referred by. And those are all problems that small business owners have. And we end up getting in our own way, trying to bootstrap it because we're looking for the free software. And I always say business owners, we all have two things we can spend, right? We can spend time or we can spend money. We either have the time that bootstrapping it isn't a big deal and we can figure out the process that we have to follow in order to make these systems work for us, which might involve a little bit more sweat equity, or we can spend the money because we no longer have the time to get a system that's all in one that would allow us to take our time and use it elsewhere and let that system do what it's supposed to do without a lot of sweat equity because it just does it all.
Well,
Right.
so let me touch upon that. So yes, we all, as business owners, we have to be careful where we're spending the money. So if somebody's willing to give a free piece of software to help, that's really, really great. But these software companies are not dumb. They know that if I give a free piece of software, then they're going to put certain restrictions into that free piece of software that you're going to stumble across at some point, and you're going to hit a brick wall because the thing that you need now, that you realize you need, is now becoming a paid feature. I mean, like we all get email, but let's just take even like the most basic issue. A customer, a business owner who is using their business name at gmail.com
Mm.
instead of dropping the $12 a month on a proper G Suite account so that you can have a branded email address. Now, it's a small little detail, but if the business owner is cutting corners in that, we've all received emails from people who use that, and it goes sort of in the back of our heads that, like, okay, why couldn't they spring for that? Or the Zoom meeting that cuts off after 40 minutes because you didn't want to spend the money on a proper Zoom account so that you can go past the 40-minute maximum time. So it's in order to, like, what ends up happening with business owners who go out into the market is that they look at the different web pages from these different service providers, these different softwares, and they say, oh, well, this is going to do that, this, and the other thing. And this other software does this, that, and the other thing. Oh, and this guy does this, that. Oh, and they're free. And they call that a CRM, and they call this a CRM, and that one's free. So I'm going to go to them. And then they try to shoehorn their business into that way of working. And that's probably the worst way to think about your business. You're basically relegating the responsibility of how you run your business to that company's vision of a piece of software. And well, let's examine that company. That company is usually a Fortune 500 company that's, probably has a market cap of anywhere from $1 billion to $15 billion. That company is comprised of CEOs and technicians and sales reps and account managers, and none of those people truly understand the trials and tribulations of a small business owner. So, right? Like we all have, like, you're a small business owner, I'm a small business owner. We love our friends who are still employed in corporate world, but I think we could all agree that there is somewhat of a there's a disconnect between the lifestyles and concerns of people who are running a business versus the lifestyles and concerns of people who have a 9 to 5 kind of job, right?
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
so,
And there's a difference in mindset with them as well. And that's okay. And listen, it's okay to need to bootstrap. We all have to bootstrap eventually. Like, we have to start where we are, right? So there's nothing wrong with starting with the business name at Gmail or the business name at Yahoo. There's nothing wrong with starting there if you really don't have the $6 a month to pay for the G Suite, or $12 a month, whatever it is now, for the G Suite. But know that, set yourself a goal. Like, know that that's not as professional as it could be. You could have a domain specific email address, and it only costs $12 a month. Do the backwards math. How many clients will it take for you, or how many sales will it take for you to justify the cost of having that G Suite account?
yeah.
And then one at a time, start biting off these systems that are going to allow you to be more professional and have a more seamless integration with how you want to do business. Because you're right, a lot of these systems that exist that are for free, you're having to kind of manipulate how you operate your business to fit inside of what that free system is going to allow you to do. And it's
Right.
not always ideal. It can be very frustrating.
So, right.
Yeah.
So this is the way that I prefer. So I remarked a little earlier that people go out into the market, they find software, and it does this A, B, and C, and they say, I need A, B, and C, and then they shape how they work around that. Whereas the right way to do it, and I'm going to refer to the Michael Gerber book again, is that you, as the entrepreneur, us as business owners, we don't even know our own job descriptions. Most business owners are former technicians that go into business delivering the technical work that they used to do, but except now your name is on the door and your name is on the sign. And so you went from being a technical person to now being the secretary and the answering the phone and doing the books and doing the marketing and do. And so the technical person who starts a business doesn't realize that their whole job descriptions change. They're now an entrepreneur. And an entrepreneur's only job is to be much more like a Thomas Edison type of person. You have to be an inventor. You are inventing systems to run your business. You're inventing what happens when a person walks in the door. You are inventing what does a person say to the customer who's just walked in the door. You're inventing what does it look like when you have an onboarding session. What does it look like when you send a quote? You're inventing what hat do you wear or what shirt do you wear. And so that's your only job as the entrepreneur, is to invent your business from the ground up. And that's what I challenge business owners to consider before you start to rely upon the software to solve all of your problems. You need to imagine every single step that happens from the moment your phone rings to the moment the customer is graciously thanking you for a job well done. And I challenge every business owner watching this to think through every single step. And now, if you offer multiple different services, well, then that just multiplies the layers of complexity there. And so if a customer comes in and they are seeking this, well, what happens? If what we offer them isn't the right thing that they need right now, okay, well, how do we follow up? How do we onboard the customer? What gets sent to them? What do we need from them? Okay, now that we're in the middle of a project, how does that work? And only upon thinking all of that stuff through are you going to have a proper vision for what the CRM should be doing for you. And so that's my challenge to everybody out there, is to spend the rest of the night tonight mapping out your customer journey. And that might be the best use of time that you could possibly do.
And it will take time. I am 3 years into business June 1st for SpinFrogs, and I'm still working that out for myself, because sometimes, just like you talked about, you're the technician, you go out on your own as the technician and you own your own work. And that's beautiful. You have a passion for what you do. You want to do more of it, and that's awesome. But there comes a point for every technician who is an entrepreneur, business owner, to shift out of the day-to-day and into business ownership. And that's what's happening with SpinFrogs. Like, as we're recording this, I'm going through that transition. I now have an associate, so that way I can start to shift out of the day-to-day and into, what do I really want this to be? What do I really want this to look like? And what are the things that I need to put in place to make that happen? And it takes time to get there. It takes a long time to really think through all of those different layers of communication. And just like you said, if you're a business who has multiple services that you offer, each one of those has its own, okay, well, it starts here and it goes to there. And how am I leading them from here to there? And what does that look like? What does each layer of communication look like for that particular service? And how do I repeat it? How do I make it so that way it's easily a system that somebody else can follow who isn't me? Because eventually it's not going to be me. It'll be somebody else.
Well, hopefully, right. So this is a rhetorical question for everybody in the audience to answer to themselves, is, do you want to be an owner of a business, or do you want to be the owner of a job? And if you're the owner of a business, then in theory, you can take 6 months off in Tahiti and you won't need to check in except to just look at your bank account. If you're the owner of a job, you're stuck grinding it out day to day to day to day. And you can only be the owner of a business if you are first the inventor of that business. If the entire delivery mechanisms of your business exists within your head, and your staff is basically there to just hear your demands on a daily basis, improvised willy-nilly, then take you out of the equation, they're going to be lost. And the opposite of that is having job descriptions, having roles, having responsibilities, having the customer journey mapped out, and so that you can look and hold people accountable that they're doing things by your system. I mean, look at the explosion of franchises. I mean, McDonald's can only be McDonald's because they built the systems for delivering things. Any of the thing that separates big business from small business is nothing but the big business's desire to scale and to be a real organization, and that's what I'm striving for, and I know that that's what you're striving for. And if you're out there in the audience and that's what you're striving for in the audience, then Terry and I definitely want to speak with you.
Yeah, we want to help you do that because I think we totally can. And that's
Awesome.
really important too. I think the thing that a lot of small business owners say and rehearse and repeat to themselves to give themselves solace or to give themselves a goal, I'm not really sure which, is, well, small business is different than big business. And that's cool. We like small business better. It's more personal.
Sure.
Yes, true. It is. Yeah. And we love small business. Small business is 95% of what makes our country run is small business. They're important. They're critical to the success of our nation. But for every one employee that exists, there's not a business owner for them. There's a business owner for every 5 employees that exist. So we need to have the business owners because there are people out there who are happy to be an employee. And we need you too. We don't want to just have a world full of business owners because then nobody's going to work for us. We need the people who want to be employees too.
Well, yeah, and that's great. Like there's fantastic employees, and like organizations can't get by without them. Like everybody's in different parts of their own life journey, and so if a person wants to start a business, we can only advise that they do it in a way that's not going to take years off of their life and stress them out. And it's really, really hard. It's if you have a family and you have kids and you have these responsibilities, it's going to be really hard to get something off of the ground. There's the world is always going against you. Everything, entropy is always against the success of any organization. To make something out of nothing, where nothing existed, and to pull things out of the universe to make something like poof, it's the hardest thing in the world, because the entire universe is always just forcing things to just break down. Like your your bedroom doesn't get cleaner over time, it just gets messier.
Damn it, really? Oh.
Yeah.
If only it worked that way, Pete. Come on.
Right. Yeah. Broken glass doesn't like spontaneously put itself back together, and that's the same thing with business. Is that you have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, and you're probably sane for giving up, over time, because it is hard and it's depressing and it's sad, and that gets you back to why we all need a business buddy, because you need somebody who's going to be there to console you at those moments when, if that person wasn't there, you probably would walk away.
Yeah.
But luckily you have that person there to say something even as mundane as like, what else are you going to do?
Right. We all need that person that we can bounce ideas off of, that we can gripe to, and that can look at us and say, okay, are you done bitching now? Like, it's time to get to work. Like, we have
Right.
things to do.
Put on your big boy pants.
Right. We can all wallow in self-pity, or we can actually get up and do something. And it's important to keep in mind that everybody's journey is unique and different to them. And when we're thinking about our customer journey and we're building out that map, to understand that where they're entering our system or where they're entering our funnel is going to be different for everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
So, right. So again, it gets back to the idea of mapping things. You have to spend an equal amount of time working on your business than working in your business. It's probably time better spent working on your business than working in your business. And what I mean by that is that if you're a retail shop and you're spending 15 hours a day in the shop servicing clients, and then you're too tired to come home and plan a marketing campaign, then you didn't really do a good enough job balancing your working on the business. You didn't spend enough time improving the way that your business presents itself to the world. And so I would urge people to also to think about that. How much time are you putting in working on your business versus working in your business?
Absolutely. Pete, this has been great. You've given us some really good things to think about, some nuggets to consider throughout our journey, and some really clear understanding of how a CRM system can help our small business owners. And so for everybody listening, I want to give them the opportunity to connect with you. So what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
I would say shoot me an email. I'm very personable. I won't bite. It's Pete, Pete, at segwik.com, SEGWIK.com. And or if they're close personal friends of yours, just feel free to make the introduction. But I'm willing to talk to anybody who wants to be inspired. I've been fortunate enough to get to some level of success, and I have nothing but a big place in my heart for anybody who is trying to make their dreams come alive. And so if I can be a catalyst for making that person be better today than they were yesterday, then I'm going to do it.
That's awesome. That's why we're friends. I so appreciate you being here and wanting to share that love and be that support system for other entrepreneurs. And thank you. Thank you so much for listening to Pete and the things that he has to say. Do take the time to reach out to him. He's definitely a business buddy that you want to have in your corner. And thank you for taking the time to be here.
Awesome. Thank you.